Hello and good evening, Lifebook VIPs. This is Sandra Garest, President of Lifebook, and welcome to our live Google Hangout for the month. In our 12-category, 12-month rhythm, we're in the 5th month of the year, so that means that we are talking about the spiritual life category. And so it's truly an honor to be here with you as we explore this deep, rich, amazing category. And I'm honored that I have 4 amazing, inspiring Lifebook members that are here with me this evening to answer your questions and to share their wisdom with us when it comes to their own spiritual journey. You know, this month's chapter of focus represents kind of the last stop in our personal life section of our Lifebook. It's the last one that wraps up where we're looking at really who we are separate from the rest of the world before we move into the relationship section. And this category is deeply personal, and as you guys know, it can bring a lot of different perspectives with it. Overall, it's about really tapping into a power that's bigger than us, and it's about connection, and it's about peacefulness and contribution. It's about so many different things. What I particularly love about this category is that I feel like it calls us all to really look for the best in ourselves, to call that out, and to search for more deeper meaning and purpose in our lives and connecting us to that. I wanted to open with sharing a quote that I have in my Lifebook chapter from Shakti Gwan, who says, "The more light you allow within you, the brighter the world you live in will be." And you know, I feel like this Lifebook community is so representative of that, of just being the light, being a positive example for others, because we're so connected in this world. And that's the other thing that this category really brings up for me, is the interconnectivity that we have to everyone on this planet, everyone in our community. You know, micro and macro, we touch people every day with the way that we live our lives. So this gives us an opportunity to really look at how we can be our best and inspire others to do the same. So we're excited that you're here with us as well tonight. We want to give you some inspiration to ignite your own spiritual path, and maybe give you some information to look at this chapter a little differently, maybe to have the breakthrough that you've been waiting to have when it comes to walking a spiritual path. So I'm going to start off by introducing our amazing panel that I have with me here this evening. And you guys can, we've already had some questions that have been submitted, but you can also type your questions on the box on the side panel, and I can answer those live as well. So let's start off here and introduce Akira Chan and Renee Arya, who are coming to us live from California this evening. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Oh, beautiful. I want to share with you a little bit about their background. Renee and Akira went through our January session this year. Renee was a Lifebook alum, had already been through before, and she came with Akira just a few months ago. They are co-founders of Rare Media. Akira is a filmmaker, the creative director for Rare Media, which is a digital media and documentation production company, and it's truly amazing and creative. You guys do such awesome work. I love your stated mission is to take the blah out of media and create an experience that is revolutionary, artistic, relevant, and enchanting. Prior to Rare Media, Akira had the honor of partnering with Elevate Films, where he filmed and produced over 200 productions, ranging from clients with like the Dalai Lama and Singularity University. And he's also produced feature films Neurons to Nirvana and Be Brave. And when Renee and Akira met, they decided to partner and share their creative energies to produce the company that they're now owning and running, with the intention of bringing enchantment to the world. And you guys definitely do that. Renee Arya is an amazing keynote speaker, world-renowned. She's also a brain tumor survivor and soul sister. She's such a sweet dear, and what I love about Renee's story, for those of many of you know her story and have seen her speak before or read her book, in 2004 when she was unexpectedly diagnosed with a life-threatening brain tumor, her story is that it changed her life forever for the better, and she's really used that as a springboard to inspire other people how to heal yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. She has an amazing talk called Flip Your Flaws that's it's just profound, and I recommend everyone checking it out. Renee and Akira have also graciously written a great piece for our VIP page this month, guys. So if you haven't checked it out yet, please read The Four Spiritual Riches, and they put together a beautiful film for us as well. So thank you guys so much for being here. I can't wait to talk with you both.
Thanks, Sandra.
All right, and then we also have Dave Jaworski, a familiar face of the Lifebook community. Dave went through Lifebook in 2013, and he also started working for Lifebook in 2013. He's currently the COO of our Project Double division with Lifebook. Dave is also the founder and chief operating and CEO of Meta Media Partners. Dave's got an interesting, fascinating background in technology and marketing. He spent the first half of his career on the tech side and the second half more in marketing and sales and management. I love this fact about you, Dave. You were the third employee of Microsoft Canada. So crazy. And then served as Microsoft's national sales manager and eventually moved to the U.S. as general manager of Western U.S. sales. He's also on board of directors for several philanthropy companies and does such good work out there. And Dave's coming to us from Nashville, Tennessee. Hi, Dave.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. We love your fireplace. So adorable.
I hear heavy breathing in the background. It's not me, it's my dog.
Dave, next month is love relationship category. We're down over there. And then last but not least, we have Lizzie Adams from Colorado. Lizzie, hi, welcome. So great to have you here with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Lizzie is a resident of Estes Park, Colorado. She's a certified yoga teacher with over 29 years of experience. She teaches something called gentle yoga, also Qigong and meditation. She has her own private studio in Estes Park. She's also in private practice as a psychotherapist and a biodynamic cranial sacral therapist, which, oh my gosh, I could use some of that. Lizzie, I wish you were closer. That sounds amazing. She has a huge passion for healing and awakening herself and others and our world at large. So thank you, Lizzie. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you.
All right, guys, so that's our panel. We've got a great lineup for you tonight. We've got some fantastic questions as well that were submitted by our community, but obviously we're talking about the spiritual life category, and this one, I have to say that, I think initially when people come through Lifebook, they're a little maybe nervous or tentative about this one. I think it might be a little dicey, and it always ends up being so beautiful. And myself as a facilitator, I know I was a little nervous about that too, about just being very respectful of all beliefs and religions and things. But I truly feel that this category, just the way that John has kind of set it up for us and in our thinking regarding our premise, vision, purpose, strategy, lends itself to a very open discussion and really kind of awakens people at a new level to their own personal spiritual journey and maybe empowers them at a level that they've never experienced before. So let's start off with a question for the group. So this one I love because I feel like it is something that even relates back to our character chapter that we talked about last month. So the setup of this question is that in this world, one of the challenges that I feel a lot of humans, individuals face is loving and accepting ourselves. With media images and things that we're bombarded with on a regular basis, and just people really having that self-love and acceptance. So the question is, what is your process for overcoming negative self-talk? Renee and Akira, would you like to start off, please?
Ladies first.
Go. Okay. I love this topic, and it kind of speaks a little bit to, as you mentioned in the intro, the talk that I share, which is called Flip Your Flaws. And just a little mini personal share there is that I went into massive brain surgery for a tumor that had been undiagnosed for 15 years. And I thought that waking up on the other side of that surgery that I would just be, oh my gosh, like I feel so free because finally what has been in my body, has stopped interrupting my process of health. But when I woke up to a paralyzed face. So my face was 100% paralyzed on one side. And I got to tell you, I definitely saw opportunity after opportunity after opportunity for having extremely negative self-talk. And for me, what my premise goes back to was staying connected to self and just letting go of some of those external comparisons that we can have, is absolutely knowing my own inner voice. And the ways that I have come to know my own inner voice is through meditation and through journaling. So you just mentioned about the media. I get really fired up about this topic, and I'll just share one thing and then let Akira take over, because obviously we have a media company and we want to be putting very positive imagery out into the media. But at the same time that I share that, I do feel that as adults, we really need to take personal responsibility and not blame the way that we would be feeling about ourselves on the media or something on the outside. I think that it has become very easy for humanity, because there are so many negative things or unrealistic things that are portrayed in the media, to just almost go into a little bit of a lazy mode and say, well, you know, that's because I don't have any positive role models, or this is what the media shows me. Okay, but does that feel empowering? No, that doesn't feel empowering at all. So I feel like we really need to go inside, you know, and take responsibility and really own the thoughts that we're having about ourselves. And if they don't fit in congruency with something that makes us feel in self-love and makes us feel in love with other people, we need to just go deep and keep sitting with our silence and keep sitting with our journaling until we get to the space where we know that there is something much greater than us. So that's my little share on that question.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's such a big question, and I think what I'd like to focus on is just a little sliver of it, which is that part about how we are bombarded by so many different types of media, so many different messages. So how do you create self-love and this kind of self-spiritual sovereignty in light of being bombarded by a lot of different messages, and most of them negative in the mainstream media? So, my response to all of that, not only in producing positive media that's going to actually uplift people and enhance their lives, whether it's the spiritual dimension of their life or their health or whatever it is, but there's also so many great resources out there. Like, I curate my reality to the extent that I can. So I only subscribe to positive YouTube channels and positive news sources. Yeah. And you can pretty effectively curate your reality online, where we're bombarded by so many different systems, so many different messages telling us to do this or look this way and all these things. So that's a big component for me. It's just seeing through all of the messaging to what is really going to support me and my beliefs, and really kind of embracing all of it, but also having some filters set up as well.
Yeah, a really good example of that is our friend, I think, Sandra, you know about Intently.
Yeah, yeah.
Company, which is a great resource at intently.com. I don't know what it is, but basically you can replace your Facebook ads, like any and all of Facebook ads, with positive messages, which are quote pics or photos of things that you love, that you would want to see on your Facebook every day. And that's just a really small example, but that is a great point. There are many different ways that you can curate your own reality.
Absolutely. And I love the theme of things that you both touched on. Goes back to a core philosophy of Lifebook overall, which is self-responsibility. So it's controlling your environment to the extent possible to block out some of that, but then also doing things to really, I loved what you said, Renee, about like knowing your own inner voice and getting in touch with that, so that you're not allowing negative imagery to kind of soak in. You know who you are, in essence, at your core.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Lizzie, how about you? What are some of the things that you do to really combat any negative self-talk? How do you handle it and create a more positive inner peace?
Well, I love what was just shared, and I'm right on, task with that. I'm very moved. And for me, I'm a deep meditator. I started teaching myself to meditate about 33 years ago, and it's been a process over many years of becoming very intimate with my own inner wounding, my own inner complexity, my own inner, bizarreness of how I used to think about myself and about life. So I've spent a lot of time just being curious about what was the root of these distortions that I personally carried. And I learned something, a real powerful way. I just sort of started spontaneously a transformative self-talk where I would, empower myself through presence, learned how to get very aligned, and then go in kind of like a mama bear and help kind of rescue those young places that might be getting a bit slaughtered by certain ways of thinking or feeling that I had learned, in my historical setting. So it's been an ongoing passion for me as well, to really stay on top of that and be very present, to meditate every day. I feel kind of like I'm at the beginning stages, even though I started so long ago. And another thing that has happened by surprise is that I am studying with a group in Europe. They're kind of based in Germany as well as Jerusalem, and it's very powerful to be in a group of very competent, like-minded people who I'm learning so much from, where we actually take the reality of the news and very realistic realities that have happened in our world. For example, there's a retreat after Christmas where they bring people from the Jewish culture and the German culture, where together we hold a space of presence where things such as imprints of the Holocaust can actually, through a contained, high vibrational space, that we can actually start to shift some of those patterns that are impacting our world in ways that we don't even realize. So I get excited to face some of the harder stuff that's going on in our world, but to be very resourced and to give myself a 5-minute limit when I'm on my own, because I want to see what's going on, I want to contribute, I want to help, and I want to understand, how my spiritual practice can contribute to the world at large. But I'm very excited to do it in a context of a Sangha, like a group spiritual community, where together you can look at things that are difficult and transmute them into a new future that's not, it's like rewriting the past together as a collective. So,
Lizzie, what did you call the process that you go through personally?
Well, transformative self-talk, is that what you were thinking about?
Yeah. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So, maybe I'm in a place where I'm in kind of an old paralysis of feeling like I have no value, or, something that I feel a bit defeated or collapsed. I was orphaned as a child, so I didn't ever grow into a system where I felt mirrored or held or affirmed. I didn't have people who were by my side and cheering me on. So I learned how to go in there and really question those beliefs and go in and do transformative self-talk. It's like, well, sweetheart, that's really not true. I know you don't feel like you have value, but you have so much value. And you go in and you go deep enough so it's not just nicey nice, kind of talk that is like fluffy, but it goes into the root of what's really true. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm a treasure. I'm precious, and how to go in and work it so I actually, through my own inner conversation, can transform those old energetics that might go into certain pathways that are really, they're historical. They're not true in the present moment.
Yeah.
It's like it's my own inner coach.
I love that. I think everyone could benefit from that for sure. I mean, and and I'm so grateful that you shared that, Liz, because I feel like it's, we all have those wounds and hurts from the past and those messages that we may be conscious of, or they're just kind of subconsciously running underneath there that that are derailing us from our greatness, from that light within. So what a beautiful way to transform that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, I want to let you weigh in on this. What are some of the strategies that you use to really manage any negative self-talk?
Well, I really appreciate what the others have shared, and Liz is right. You are a treasure. You are so valuable. And I believe that God is love and is the essence of love. And I think it's easy to start telling ourselves those lies that we're not loved. And so a friend of mine shared a quote with me that I thought that was very powerful for me, and that was that he said, God doesn't say, I'll love you when you get to this place. He says, I love you for who you are, not what you do. And who you are is a present state. It's who you are in this moment. We're all human becomings. And so to the sense that we are all work in progress on a journey, I think that it's important to understand that God loves us, and so much so that my title page of my spiritual section, I wrote, Lifebook loves having you put a picture and a quote in. So my picture is a picture of God, and my quote says, I love you, David.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I get a personal message every time I open that section from God that says, David, I love you. So no matter how crazy the day may be going, that kind of a quote can really speak to me. And back to early days, you mentioned Microsoft. Early days of Microsoft, we talked about affirmations and the power of affirmations. And I still have one affirmation that goes back to that first day I learned about affirmations. And it's, I love and respect myself. I know I am a worthy, capable, and valuable person simply because God loves me. And that I've maintained that affirmation to encourage me, to pick me up when I'm down, when I'm riding high, to keep a perspective on that, to not get too full of self, but to really understand where the gift comes from. And so for me, that's been grounding for many, many, many years.
That's so beautiful. I love your cover page, Dave. That's perfect. It reminds me, my spiritual coach, something that he had said to me a few years back that I guess I'd never really thought about it in that essence, but he had said, well, Sandra, what do you have to do in order to earn God's love? Because sometimes we think of like good or bad, or, if we're on track or not. And he said, you have it. Like, you have it no matter, like, there's nothing you can do to earn it, and there's nothing you can do to lose it. And I think that's a definite rock that has been, steady for me and a pillar for me. So awesome answers, guys. All right, let's move on here to our next question. Okay, this is a really good one because I would like to dive into the premise section of our life books with this question. It says, what's one of your favorite spiritual beliefs, and how do you live that belief on a consistent basis? Because I actually, in my experience with Lifebook members, the premise section is the one that can be probably more challenging for people with this category. So, Dave, can we start with you? This time we'll kind of go in reverse. What is one of your favorite spiritual beliefs, and how do you live consistently with it?
Probably the most powerful belief that I hold is that we're here for a choice. If I'm going to super oversimplify life, we're here for a choice for eternity. And that is to invite God in or to push him away and say we can do it ourselves. And so that belief about this being an eternal choice, and John talks about Aristotle and about our lives are all about happiness. For me, there's one extra word in that. It's about eternal happiness. And when I put it in that perspective, I can totally rationalize that, not just in this section of my life book, but it really is like the hub of the wheel for me. It's all the spokes. If I was thinking of the old balance wheel with the spokes of the wheel being the categories, to me, this category would be the hub of the wheel. And so for me, how do I live that out? I would tell you that given who Dave is, flawed individual, and someone who would make bad choices and hasn't always made every right choice, I don't know if I'd be alive if I didn't have that belief, that premise. I don't know if I'd be married if I didn't have that premise. I don't know if I'd be the dad I try to be if I didn't have that premise, or the granddad. Now I have 3 beautiful grandbabies. For me, it puts perspective on things. So instead of looking at this day, this moment, this stress, this joy, whatever it might be, I try to put it in that eternal perspective, and that keeps me driving forward when it's tough. It also motivates me to shoot higher when things are well, and I really find that premise is kind of my life-shaping premise. It's probably the most important premise for me in my whole life book.
Wow. Thank you. Okay, Liz, how about you? What is one of your favorite foundational premises for this category, and how do you live consistently with that?
I just love what Dave just shared. I'm very resonant with all that, Dave. You know, what is growing to be for me also the clearest chapter in my life book, I was surprised, really is my spiritual life. I was very surprised to go back and really read it again and to realize it had the most clarity. And for me, what it is learning how to become a believer rather than a fixer. I have kind of the Mighty Mouse syndrome. I feel like I can do everything on my own, and I have been very competent ever since I was a little girl. I could just accomplish whatever I set my mind out to, but I realized that I had become so self-sufficient that I really wasn't palpating God. So I'm learning that I can actually palpate God and let that energy into my life, and I realize it matters to me more than absolutely anything. And yet I have been, have found that really I tend to be the doer. And so what's really shifting for me now after all these years is every single day in my meditation in the morning, at night, is to sit long enough that I can actually feel the presence of light coming in, and realizing how much Spirit God wants to co-create with me in my life, wants to be a partner with me in everything that I do. And it's not something I make up to comfort myself. It's actually very real. And so it's a real practice of getting that in my meditation, and then really looking at surrender, and I still have to act and I still have to participate, but it usually really shifts where I'm coming from, and the results are quite different, and there's more surprises in my life. So it takes action and it takes effort for me, but I'm really into it. So.
Wow, that's beautiful imagery. I love that, Liz. Thank you. Renee and Akira, what's in your premise section of your life book?
Well, I love those responses. I'm going to bring those into my premise when I rewrite this chapter or add to it. And for me, it's, there's that curious nature that you mentioned, Liz, that's really important to me. And in my premise, my premise is really about spirituality being a language, like being the language of my life, in a way where it doesn't have a certain system tied to it. It doesn't even look a certain way. It just is a language that can be part of the way I am interacting with friends and family that day, the way I'm doing my creative work, the way I'm doing business, going into a meeting. And there's a spiritual component to all of that to me just feels like it's a faith, and it takes many forms. I have to say that Renee, my beautiful partner here, really helps me to remember that, because she's just so devoted to her spiritual practices, and I see her meditating every day, and it just, she's always there, devoted, and and staying connected to her spirit, and it's a good reminder for me. So that's also a big part of how I stay, how I stay connected. But it's really become just an infusion of kind of all the things I've tried out in the realms of spirituality. I think, people who may be listening to this can relate to being not having a certain religion growing up, and then finding yourself really wanting to explore something deeper in life, and that taking the form of a spiritual path and spiritual seeking. And I dove in for many years and probably spent 50% of my days exploring, in practices, in meditation, reading, just kind of ingesting everything I could in the category of spirituality. And I think I did so much that I had to just stop for a bit and digest it all for a few years. And in digesting it all, I kind of realized, okay, it's kind of, it's not just one thing for me. It's all of it. And it's also not a separate thing. It's not something I have to, kind of put this away to go out and do my spiritual practice. And that was my big epiphany. And that, that was really clear in writing my premise, was that it really just is all kind of lumped into the same way of doing life these days. So that's what it is for me.
I love that language. You're talking about language in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have a magical language. You have such a magical language. For me, I had a lot in the premise section, but probably the most simple and maybe the most valuable one to share is that my life is a walking prayer. Mm-hmm. And that kind of speaks similar to what you were sharing, Akira. We happen to right now be in, I would say, one of the spiritual epicenters of the United States, in Encinitas, California, more yoga studios per capita than any other place in California, I believe. And I think what I've witnessed in my last 20 years of prayer and meditation and devotion is that sometimes it can be a very separate act. Like I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go within, and that's where I'm going to find my peace. So let me just go over there and find my peace and do my thing. And that is obviously important. I meditate every day for 20 years now, that and Akira was sharing that. But I think the most spiritual, this is just my opinion, that the most spiritual thing that we can do as humans is to be present. And so presence for me is really a part of, may my life be a living prayer. May I bring sacredness into everything that I'm doing, into the interaction that I'm having with the person at the grocery store, into the interaction that I'm having with myself and my own inner voice, to the reaction that I'm having, at the airport when my flight gets canceled. How can I see the sacredness in this? How can I bring the sacredness into this situation right now? That's for me, the best way to stay not only connected to myself, but to the world and to everyone here, is to be in that place of presence and sacredness.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I think that kind of leads into one of the other questions here about any strategies that you use to live harmoniously versus being jolted around by the ebb and flow of day-to-day life. So I think it is sometimes the daily distractions and to-do lists that can take us out of being present and living consciously and just really being that, in the moment. We're so distracted. So who would like to jump in on this one? Strategies that you use to live more harmoniously versus being jolted around by the ebb and flow of day-to-day life.
I think it's been reflected by everybody in the sense that the others have talked about daily meditation. I try to start every day in prayer, and I find if I do that, the day is much better, and those things that do come along don't jolt me off the track as hard. And if I skip it, I feel it. I notice it. And sometimes I'll be partway through a day and I'll just go, why is this day feeling so off? And it'll be just like, stop. You didn't take that time to center yourself, to just start off in the right place. And so I'll go back to prayer, and sure enough, that'll kind of calm things down and get them back on the rails. And I find that if you're in a time of deep stress, when a lot is coming at you, maybe you need multiple times a day. And it sounds like the others feel that way similarly, in the sense that they go to meditation. I really liked what Akira said about living it in everything. And I think that is so powerful, that it becomes a way of life, so that as you're walking along, you find that time when you just center yourself again, and you can pull back from something. You see somebody who's missing a flight, the example that Renee used, or what other stress might be. Somebody's honking the horn, impatient. It's a time to, instead of getting wrapped up in that emotion, like we talked about in the emotional life section, you can have an emotional recipe about how you deal with that. And that can be something you take to prayer. That can be something that you just turn back and say, that person's having a tough day right now. I'll just take a moment and just pray for them. Send good energy, however you like to phrase that. But the idea that we are connected, we are relational beings, and the opportunity for us to recognize that the influence we have on each other is profound as we're going through these walks. And so, Renee, you shared how you try to walk that. I would tell you that I saw you in your earlier Lifebook class. I was present during that session, and not to diminish anyone else in the room, but just to say that you had a presence about you that was absolutely magnetic to that room. Everybody in that room got to know Renee and got to feel connected to Renee because she just exuded that presence. She was fully present to everybody. And that's a gift. That's a really wonderful gift. So I really wanted to just laud you for that. I think that's very powerful, and I think that's a good call to all of us to be present and to really recognize that it's not just about us, it's about how we connect with others and how we can help bring calm and peace into their day. Liz talked about light, and I believe that light comes to us and through us. And so I think that we all have that opportunity to be like you were, Renee, during that time.
Well said, Dave.
Thank you. Yeah, I really feel like, thank you for sharing that, Dave. And I think what comes up for me to just spontaneously share there is that I think it's beautiful to be selfish when it comes to connecting to yourself and when it comes to connecting with truth. Yep. And I know, I see it. I still get involved in this dilemma sometimes myself, not that often now, but still sometimes, and especially in being in such high-powered entrepreneurial groups and with beautiful, amazing people who know that they're here to bring impact and leave legacy in the world. I mean, we've got a lot of stuff to do and not enough time, right? So I'm constantly hearing from people, I don't have time. I don't have time to do the rituals. I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to pray. Maybe I can just stick it in somewhere on the side. But I mean, I got to tell you guys that being selfish has never, ever, ever failed. Whenever I've said, you know what, I can't come home right now because I have to go meditate. Or I'm going to have to take a step back right now. I need to just go journal. When you can stand in your own discernment from a place of love and from a place of light and saying, I need to go here now. I need to be this for myself. It only makes time be more exponential. I swear to you, you'll actually get more done if you just take that little bit amount of time. And other people will also feel more of you whenever you're in an opportunity to connect with them, because they're not going to feel all these other stresses and apprehensions and the inner nagging and the discomfort that we can have inside if we haven't had an opportunity to align. So that's what I wanted to share there.
Great.
Awesome. Liz, do you have any other comments to add?
Yeah, the phrase came about how to have a good bad day. And You know,
Good.
sometimes I am so hyper vigilant about doing my practices and eating right that there can be an inherent, tension in trying to be so perfect about my alignment. And so when I get derailed, it's like, the song Riding Shotgun Down the Avalanche. It's like how to create a container of such deep self-love for my humanity and to kind of let myself fall apart so that I'm not always trying so hard to keep myself glued together in the name of having my own equanimity. And be a bit more vulnerable and a bit more transparent about what the weak link is inside. And certainly I have to be in the right context with the right people to be vulnerable and transparent about what I'm facing or what I'm going through. But I'm noticing that that can be an opportunity in and of itself to get a little bit more raw. So yeah, to have a good bad day and let myself fall apart, and maybe something deeper will start to come through in terms of my own self-love.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, guys, great responses. Let's see. All right. This is a good question. What does spirituality mean to you, and how might you go about, and how do you go about sharing this message with younger generations? So this talks to being an example. How do you maybe set the example about what spirituality really means, cut through the confusion that we see so many people conflicted about, maybe because they can't see past can't get to their own personal spirituality because they're confused about maybe their religion. This is a very impactful question. Who would like to start?
I'll take a poke at it. So as I mentioned before, I didn't have a whole lot of spiritual or religious shedding to do, as is very common for people who are raised under a particular religion. And it's not to say that there's anything negative, because it really depends on your relationship to what was taught to you in any realm of things. But I did notice, and this is the beauty of Lifebook, is when you're in a large group, you get to see just amazing spectrum of different beliefs and backgrounds and religions and cultures, and we had an incredible one, right, Sandra, with different
absolutely, yeah,
very diverse group. and here I am, just in like very joyfully writing out my spiritual chapter, and then I would notice, and when we shared in the group, it was certainly challenging for a lot of people. And I would say that the one thing I've realized in all of my kind of like cherry picking from different religions and cultural belief systems is that there's beauty in all of it. There's great lessons in everything. The Bible has incredible lessons, and so do all the other scriptures. And the way that I approach the different belief system and my own spirituality and what that is to me is, it's just encompassing of it all. I embrace it all, and there's a different lesson for a different day. But one thing that really helps me to kind of form my, distinguish my relationship with spirituality is it's an invisible force, and I like using it for creativity. So the way my relationship works with spirit as this outside but inside invisible force is that it's one of those things that I have to thank. I thank it when it surprises me, when something beautiful comes into life, when there's a challenge I can draw from it. And it's okay for me that it doesn't have a particular voice, it doesn't show up in the same way every time. But it is this other thing that just kind of keeps me on track and keeps me faithful, gets me through the hard days. And I am okay with it being pretty formless and nameless, or taking many different forms and many different names. And that is, if I had to kind of sum up my own personal religion, it's that. It's like both abstract, but it's also very much there and a very solid part of my reality.
Wow. Very well said. Thank you, Akira.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? What does spirituality really mean to you? I mean, it's such a huge, huge question, but really kind of distilling it down for yourself, and also how might you share that with other people, especially the younger generation, to give them guidance and helping them to form their own spiritual path and beliefs?
One thing I love about Lifebook, society tells us we shouldn't talk about sex or politics, love, let's call it love, or politics or religion or spirituality. And Lifebook says, let's go deep on all those subjects. Maybe not the politics, but let's talk deeply. And I remember so many times I've seen Lifebook sessions where people say, I've had deeper discussions with this group than with my own friends. We have the how's the weather, how's the dog conversations, and in Lifebook we talk about why do you feel that way. And I remember, it sounds like the group that I went through is similar to the one that Akira and Renee went through, with such diverse spirituality. We had every belief, including people professing to be agnostic or even atheist. We had Eastern religion, we had Christian, evangelical Christian, we had Jewish, just so many different faiths, all present in the one group. And I thought, this is either going to be disaster or something else is going to happen. And it was probably the most magical experience, because everybody was there and came with a very healthy attitude of curiosity to learn from the others who were there, to understand. And I actually think anybody who goes through Lifebook with a group of people who only believe what they believe is doing themselves a disservice, because they don't have a chance to step out into waters that cause them to ask why they believe what they believe. Because again, if you get back to premise, vision, purpose, and strategy, it's what are your beliefs? Why do you believe that? What is your why? Where do you want to go with that? Where are you now? Where do you want to go with that? And how are you going to get there? And when you start hearing people talk about those things in their life, you have some incredible sharings, and some of the learnings you're going to get are going to come from others in that group who may have had very different experiences than you. And I think it's also, even in my own relationship with Susan, we've been married 34 years this summer, and she, we both now profess the same belief. She didn't grow up with the same belief in her house. We now both profess the same belief, but we are very different people. And the way that she grew up and the experience she had in her home and with her friends is very different than the experience I had. And so we still need to stay curious. I think that's one of God's gifts, is helping us be curious about each other and learn more, and that causes us to search better and deeper. So my belief is that if we seek truth, we will find it. And so I think it's really important that we be seekers, that we all be seekers. And then to the issue of how do you share it, I kind of try to understand where the person's at. And my son and I had a very wonderful discussion just this past week about faith and spirituality. And he's professing a different belief than mine right now. And it's important for him as a 26-year-old to come to his faith and to come to his decisions. So my questions are around why he believes what he believes, and when, depending on how he approaches it, I recommended a book, he recommended a book he wanted me to read, and we're both reading a book we've each recommended to each other, and we're going to talk about that and what it means to us. So I recommended Tim Keller, The Reason for God, and he recommended a book by the Dalai Lama. And so we're comparing that, but it's in love, because at the end of the day, we're seeking truth, and we want to be living that love out. And then I'm going to share, I don't want to go on too long, but one last quote. And this is about the idea of how do you live it and how do you engage millennials or anybody in that discussion. This is a quote from St. Francis of Assisi. It said, "Go out and preach the gospel, or the good news, and if you must, use words." I think the idea that our actions are going to be really saying more than our words will often say. We can preach love all we want, but if we don't evidence that in our actions, in the way we conduct ourselves, our words are empty and our faith is empty. So I think the calling to each of us is to really live what we believe fully, and invite others to just share their experiences and share these journeys. We have such fascinating stories between us.
That's awesome, Dave. I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Liz, how about you?
Oh, gosh, I'm just mesmerized by what you just shared, Dave. Thank you so much. And, you know, I really love it for the younger folks who come in and take my yoga classes. And really what I feel I have to contribute is creating a safe container for creating the conditions that allow them to have their own discoveries inside, so that they're welcome and empowered to have any feelings that are arising, any thoughts, so there's no kind of way they have to do it. But I really share about, you know, how to center, how to ground, how to come into neutrality with the mind, and to just be curious and hold a space where for each of us we're going to wake up in really unique ways, and that it's so cool to share that with one another. And so I see a lot of these younger folks just feeling their spiritual oats after they take a yoga class, and, you know, sometimes even a little sassy about what they're starting to discover. And I just hold it as a listener and as a friend without kind of putting too much of my own understanding in, just more of a space holder for that possibility. And then, like Dave said, then we can enter into a dialogue and kind of be mutual with one another and start to discover with one another. So I feel like I'm also growing and learning from them too. So it's an exciting process to hold that space, but also be a beginner and a discoverer in it with them. So it seems to be it works well.
I love that, Liz. Just creating that space, that safe space for them to explore and non-judgmental, feeling that. I love it.
Yeah.
Renee, do you have anything to add in terms of how you expose spirituality and practices to younger generations?
I love so much what everyone shared. Thank you. You know, I just talk to people's souls. It's just it's just kind of as easy as that one. I'm not really much on small talk. I just really enjoy showing up and being, like you were saying, Liz, being the place of love, being the place of safety, being the place of presence. And I mean, this younger generations, they're so with it, like they're so connected. I mean, they might sometimes get fooled that they're not connected, but they really are, just like all of us are inherently connected. So, you know, for me, I think it's really important to just remember when you're with people that there is a part of them that is connected always. And if you focus on being with that part and communicating with that part, it'll just draw it more and more out of them. And also, you know, I don't think that spirituality is not an intellectual thing at all. You know, it's very much an experiential thing. It's very much a feeling thing. I think, Liz, what you shared is so great about, you know, my spiritual experience is not going to be yours, is not going to be someone else's. You know, we all have our own unique imprint when it comes to experiencing our highest self, our highest truth. So just being willing to be open and give room for whatever their truth is and support that if it's real to them, if that is their real truth, I think is very, very important.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love it. We've only got about 5 minutes left. I do want to make a quick mention of this month's challenge that we have on our VIP page, because it's a really fun one, and we're just asking you to be more conscious and aware and pay attention to the beauty and mystery that's all around us and within us. So it's basically a photo contest to take pictures and observe when you're out in nature, or maybe with your children, or taking a walk, or meditating. Take a picture of what really is touching your heart in terms of spirituality, and then post it on the Facebook page with the tags VIP Challenge, Spiritual, and Photographing God. So Photographing God is the VIP challenge for the month, and we've got some beautiful photos that have already been shared, so we'd love to add everyone's to that collection. I think it's just a great, fun experience to do this month. I would also love to invite everybody to join us next month because we're journeying into love relationships. So my expert panel and I will be discussing love relationships on the third Wednesday of June, which is June 15th at the same time. And I want to go back to our panel for one last comment, but there's something that is kind of speaking to me to share that's in my spiritual life premise that came a couple of years ago after really going through, I think, some times of trying to draw upon more courage and in my own life and what I was trying to do. And my mentor had shared this little tip with me that I just love knowing this, that the most common phrase that appears in the New Testament is "do not be afraid." The most common phrase that appears in the Old Testament is "be not afraid." So do you think that God is trying to get a message to us in all of that? I love that. And then I have a quote from Pope John that says, "Consult not your fears, but your hopes and your dreams. Think not about your frustrations, but about your unfulfilled potential. Concern yourself not with what you've tried and failed in, but with what is still possible for you to do." So we have just a couple minutes. Renee and Akira, any last words of encouragement or inspiration on spiritual life for our group?
I love those quotes you just shared, and I'll just throw a few more into the pot. And for me, it's "as without, so within," and "as above, so below," which is just my reminder that whatever's going on outside is another reflection. It's a version of what's going on inside, and that it's really all just connected.
Beautiful.
I would just love to share with people that they are beautiful and that they are loved and that they are seen and that they are held. And just invite a person who might be listening, either it's going to be really easy for someone to take in, or there might be a lot of resistance there. And if there is resistance there, then that's probably a beautiful place to start, is to give yourself those affirmations, in the mirror, in your own eyes. Really let yourself experience your own words of love and support. And, there could be crying, there can be, I don't really believe that this is true yet, and all of that's fine. Like Liz was sharing earlier, we are having a human journey. We got blessed with the opportunity to experience emotions, and coming here and being on this planet, the goal is not to avoid all emotions, is to be able to be here and to feel the depth and to keep an undercurrent of sacredness, even throughout the depth.
Beautiful. Thank you. Dave?
You are loved.
Perfect. Well said. Lizzie, how about you?
Oh, it's so worth the journey. It's so worth the journey, and how beautiful to have good company to explore it together. This has been really fun. Thank you so much for bringing us together in this way. It's been delightful.
Well, thank you all for being here with me tonight. It's been an absolute joy and pleasure. You guys are such bright lights out there, doing so much good and inspiring people in your lives, and thank you for inspiring our community and myself tonight. You guys are really awesome, and thank you so much to our members that have been here live or will be watching the recording. So much love to all of you from myself, our whole Lifebook team, and John and Missy. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we hope to see you next month. Thanks, guys.
Sandra.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Love you guys. Thanks.
Love you too.